Let me ask you something simple, but deep. What if the most important stories in history aren't about kings, warriors, or miracles, but about ordinary people making faithful choices when no one is watching? That's where the Book of Ruth begins. And that's why it's easy to miss. Ruth is set during the time of Judges. That matters, because Judges was chaotic, violent, unstable. Everyone doing what felt right. Leadership broken, morality drifting. And right in the middle of that darkness comes a small, gentle story. About loyalty, about loss, about kindness. Ruth doesn't start with hope. It starts with famine. A family leaves their homeland because survival demands it. They go somewhere unfamiliar, and things get worse. Naomi loses her husband, then her sons. One by one, she's left with nothing. No security, no future, no protection. In that culture, that's devastating. Naomi doesn't hide her grief. She says she feels empty, bitter, forgotten. That honesty matters. Ruth doesn't rush pain. Then comes a choice. Naomi tells her daughters-in-law to leave. Go back. Start over. She has nothing left to offer. That's realistic. One daughter leaves. That makes sense. That's practical. That's logical. But Ruth stays. And this is where the heart of the book reveals itself. Ruth is not an Israelite. She's a foreigner, an outsider. She owes Naomi nothing. And yet she chooses loyalty over comfort. Her words are some of the most powerful in Scripture. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. This isn't romantic. It's costly. Ruth gives up familiarity, culture, security, to walk into uncertainty with someone broken. That's not weakness. That's courage. The two women return home poor, vulnerable, invisible, and Ruth does something small. She works. She goes into the fields to gather leftovers. No entitlement, no complaint. Just humility and effort. Ruth teaches something radical. Faithfulness often looks boring, daily, unnoticed, unglamorous. Then something quietly changes. She ends up in the field of Boaz. Not coincidence, providence. But it doesn't feel dramatic. It feels normal. Boaz notices Ruth, not because she's powerful, but because she's kind, hardworking, respectful. Integrity stands out in dark times. Boaz protects her, provides for her, but doesn't exploit her vulnerability. That matters. Ruth is not a love story first. It's a character story. Love grows out of honor, not impulse. Naomi starts to hope again. Slowly, carefully. She doesn't jump to joy. Trauma makes people cautious. Ruth follows Naomi's guidance, trusts wisdom, acts with courage, still with humility. Boaz responds with responsibility. He doesn't rush. He does things properly, legally, publicly, honorably. That's rare, especially in the time of Judges. The redemption at the end of Ruth is quiet. No miracles, no fire from heaven, just people choosing what's right. Ruth marries Boaz. Security is restored. Naomi's emptiness begins to heal. Not instantly, gradually. But here's the most important part. The book doesn't end with the wedding. It ends with a lineage, a child, a future. Ruth, the foreigner, the outsider, becomes part of something bigger. Her faithfulness echoes forward. Generations later, Ruth becomes the great-grandmother of David, a king. And far beyond that, her story becomes part of redemption history. This teaches something powerful. God works through the faithful actions of ordinary people. Ruth shows that loyalty matters, kindness matters, faithfulness matters, even when no one applauds it. If Judges shows what happens when everyone does what feels right, Ruth shows what happens when someone does what is right. This book matters today because people feel small, invisible, replaceable. Ruth says, your choices still matter. You don't need power to be faithful. You don't need recognition to be meaningful. Ruth didn't know how her story would end. She just chose loyalty today, and that was enough. If you've ever felt, I don't see the point of doing the right thing. No one notices my effort. I feel like an outsider. Ruth understands you. It doesn't promise instant reward. It promises that faithfulness is never wasted. Ruth doesn't shout. It whispers, and that whisper outlasts chaos. After the noise of Judges, Ruth reminds us, God often works quietly through people who simply refuse to stop loving. That's the Book of Ruth. Gentle, human, enduring.